Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Teaching Math with Google Drawings. This session is part of a series of free webinars offered every week or two by the Stark Portage Area Computer Consortium, or SPARC for short. SPARC is an information technology center here in Northeast Ohio where we support about 30 school districts. However, this webinar is open to everyone, and we'd like to welcome all the people who have joined us live today or who are watching the recording in the future. My name is Eric Curts, and I'm a technology integration specialist here at SPARC, and I'll be your presenter for the session today. All of the information for today's webinar can be found at tiny.cc/spark223. And I'd encourage you to go to that site if you've not already done so. If you're watching live, you probably are there already, but if you're watching in the future on the recording, definitely want to head over to that site. I'm going to go there now to show you what's there. Again, that is tiny.cc/SPARCC223. That'll take you to our webinar site. This is our tech integration site where you'll find all of the resources for today's session. That's going to include the streaming video for this session today, which will become the recorded video after the session. But you'll also find some help guides here. We'll take a look at those in just a moment. And there is a live session chat document. My colleague, Anthony, is manning that document. So if you have any questions or comments or suggestions that you would like to add or ask, please go ahead and open up that Google document. It is writable or editable by anybody, so we encourage you to jump in there, and Anthony will pass on questions to me, or he will take care of them himself. Or hey, you guys can answer each other's questions as well. That's good. Below there is a link to the session evaluation. So after this webinar is over, we always love to get your feedback. Please feel free to give a click on there and fill that out. And then at the very bottom of that page is a way for you to get a certificate of attendance for watching this webinar. There's a link to a very short quiz. Take that quiz and pass it, and you'll be emailed a PDF certificate of attendance for 1 contact hour to turn into your school. While you're on that page, might as well visit a couple other things there real quick. Notice we do have a link to our PD schedule, so you can see other upcoming webinars we have in the weeks to come here. We also have a link to our recorded trainings where you can see all of the previous webinars we have done. There is a newsletter link where you can sign up for our Sparklines newsletter so you never miss out on any upcoming PD opportunities, and a contact link there where you can get in touch with us if you need to. There I am, and there's Anthony. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll head back to our webinar for today. Bring that back up. Excellent. And we'll shoot back on over to our intro presentation. All righty. So our agenda for this session today, pretty straightforward this time. We're going to start off with a very brief overview of what Google Drawings is. I'm not going to assume that everybody knows it. It's actually not one of the better known Google tools. We all know docs and sheets and slides, but Drawings, it's kind of hidden there. And so we're going to do a brief overview of what Drawings is all about. And then after that, the whole session is just examples of activities that you can do with Google Drawings to teach math Common Core standards. And that'll be it. We'll buckle in and we'll fly through them. So there'll be a lot of examples, hopefully, that you guys can take back and use or adapt or somehow apply to your classroom. All righty. Prereqs for this session. You should have a Gmail or Google Apps account, because to use Google Drawings, you would need to have either a personal Gmail account or a school-provided Google Apps account. And of course, you'll need access to Google Drawings. As long as you can get to your Google Drive, you ought to be able to get to Google Drawings with no problem. It would be helpful if you've got a familiarity with Drawings, but if not, no problem. Again, we'll do a quick intro here to get you guys started. All right, so on with the session. As a reminder, everything can be found at tiny.cc/spark223. All right, guys, let's get going. So first thing first, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up Google Drive. And I'm going to create a blank drawing just to show you again, very briefly. I'm going to try to keep this part really short because I want to show you all the cool activities. And just want to show you what Drawings is, how it works, just lay a foundation, get that out of the way, and then we can start diving into a lot of the neat resources that we've got. Now, by the way, if you'd like to learn more about Drawings in general than my 5-minute overview is going to do as far as the buttons you click. On our webinar page, notice that right below the webinar, right below the video, there's a section called Session Resources, and the very first link there is a help guide on using Google Drawings. So if you do click that, it'll take you out to this help guide here, where I try to cover all the main things as far as how to get into drawings, how to create a drawing, the different buttons that are available, adding shapes and adding images, and probably text boxes. Yep, there's text boxes, all sorts of things that you might want to do inside of drawings. So please tap into that for way more details if you're new to drawings and there's some things you're not sure about. That document should cover all of those questions. All right, well, let me go ahead and I'm going to open up Google Drive. So I'm going to open up a new tab here. Going to go to my waffle button in the top right-hand corner and fire up Google Drive here. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a blank Google drawing just to show you again the bells and whistles of how it works. So I'm going to click on my new button in the top left-hand corner, go down to More, and from More, I'm going to choose Google Drawings. Now, that's probably one of the reasons why people don't use drawings a lot is it's hidden. It's not in the top list of things there. You got Docs, Sheets, and Slides, and then Drawings is under More. But if you go down there and click on More and then Drawings, you will get to be able to create a new Google drawing. So first of all, just going to show you the basics of what a drawing is about, and then we'll spend the rest of the time on our example activities for how to teach math using this awesome tool. All right, so here you go. There's a blank Google drawing. Couple of real quick things we'll say about this. First of all, we don't have a title for it. So if you want to title your drawing, you can just click up in the top left-hand corner, type in a title for this. I'll just call this sample drawing. Very creative there, I know. After giving it a title, something else you might notice is, I don't know if you can see this really well in the video, it may not come across all that well, but there's a bit of a checkerboard pattern that shows up on the canvas here, and that's letting you know that currently you don't have a background. This is a transparent background, and so if you don't want it to be transparent, you can simply right-click on your canvas, go to the background, and pick whatever color you'd like, even if it's just white. I'm going to go ahead and just set my background to white. Very simple. Other things you might want to do if this isn't the size you were wanting to work with, or if you wanted portrait rather than landscape, you can always go to File and then go down to Page Setup, and that will allow you to change the dimensions of your drawing. So from File and Page Setup, you can choose standard or widescreen, but better yet, you can choose custom. If you choose custom, that'll let you go in and choose either inches, centimeters, points, or pixels so that you can set exactly how wide and how tall you'd want your drawing to be. I'll leave mine alone just for this quick example here. All right. Now that we've got a couple of basic things set up there, let's talk about what you can throw into a drawing. Again, very quick. We're only going to spend a few minutes on this and then get into our examples. So when it comes to a Google drawing, you can insert a ton of stuff into here. So for example, if you go up to the insert menu, you'll see that you can add a text box, image, word art, lines, shapes, tables. Let's go ahead and just throw in a couple of quick shapes just so you get the idea of how that works. So if I go to Insert Shape and I go over to my shapes, notice there's a whole bunch of shapes I can pick from there, and we'll be playing around with these a lot more in just a bit here. But if I come in here and grab a shape, I can now click and drag out and create that shape. And if I want to add another one, I can just keep repeating that process. Insert shape, go over and grab a different shape this time. Maybe I'll go with, let me see if I've got a trapezoid sitting around here somewhere. Sure, we'll go with that guy. We'll throw him in there. You get the idea. So the point is you can simply click and drag out any shape you want. A little bit of a hint for you though, if you want your shape to be perfectly regular, so like a square rather than a rectangle or a circle rather than an oval, you can just hold down your Shift key while you're dragging it out, and that constrains it and makes it stay in regular format. So if I click on this rectangle tool, and before I click and drag it out, I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and with my Shift key on my keyboard held down, I'm going to drag this out, and there we go. No matter how hard I try, it's always going to be a square. It keeps it nice and regular. All right, so once you get shapes in, what else can you do with them? Well, you can click on a shape and you can change the color. So you can go up to the fill, make it a different color. You can change the line color around it if you wanted a different color there. You can change the thickness. You can change whether it's a dotted line or a dashed line or a solid line. If you want, you can resize a shape. You can grab the little handles in the corners to make it, tall and skinny or wide and short. If you want to rotate a shape, you can come up and grab this little teeny button, little circle sticking out of the top there, and you can rotate it around. If you want, you can also flip shapes. So I could grab this trapezoid down here, go up to my Arrange toolbar, and go down to Rotate. And instead of rotating it, I can also flip it horizontally or vertically. Boink, flip that right over, no problem at all. In addition to all of that, if I want to put text into a shape, no problem. Just double click on the shape and I can start typing in any sort of text I would want into that shape, which I can then, of course, highlight that, make the text larger, center it, whatever I might want to do. Before we leave shapes, let me show you a couple other quick little things. If you click on a shape, sometimes you get a little yellow diamond. That little yellow diamond allows you to drag and either accentuate or de-emphasize a special feature of that shape. So like with a trapezoid, I get a little yellow diamond that I can make it taper more or taper less. So you can do that with shapes. Okay, last thing on shapes. I'm looking at my notes here to make sure I'm not skipping anything. Last thing on shapes, you can also change the order in which shapes are on the screen. So for example, if I took this square, we'll make it red so it stands out a little bit better. And I said, I want to put this square behind this rectangle. I drag and drop it on there. It's in front of it. Well, why is it in front of it? Well, it's because I added it later to the drawing. Anything you add later is higher up in the order, so it sits on top of things. Well, no problem at all. You can simply right-click on a shape and go to Order to send things forwards or backwards. Or if you're not a right-clicker, you can click on it and go to Arrange and then Order, and you can send things backwards. And I could keep doing that until it gets all the way back. Or I could say Send to back, and it'll put it behind everything. And there we go. Now that square is behind the rectangle. All right, I know we're flying through this, but I just want to give you the big picture overview. So in addition to shapes, you can insert lines, whether it's just a straight line, that's fine, or whether you want to do something like an arrow. You can throw in arrows. If you put in arrows, you can make them thicker. You can change the type of end they have on them. Again, you can change the color, anything you might want to do on those. You can also insert connectors. You can insert curves. You can even insert what's called scribble. Scribble allows you to basically freehand draw on your drawing. So if I needed to come in here and maybe write a number like the number 8, I could just freehand it. Whoops, I still had my arrow turned on. I had to turn off my arrow there. Whoops, try that again. Might be a little bit more interesting without the arrow. There we go. I'll come in here and try that again. Draw number 8. Excellent. Oh, no, I've still got my arrow turned on. Okay, I'll have to turn my arrow off and go back and do that. There we go. So I'll turn my arrow off and we'll try that one more time. Come on, scribble, be my friend. There we go. Now it's just a normal scribble. Excellent. Besides that, you can add just floating text boxes. If you don't want to put text inside of something, you can just insert a text box, drag that out, type in your text. And again, you can format that in any way you would like. So that is probably the craziest, fastest overview of drawings I've ever done. But I just want to give you the idea of what it is. You basically get a big blank canvas and you can insert stuff onto it. You can put tables in there. You can put lots of different shapes. You can put lines, arrows, scribbles, word art, images. You can go and insert images, upload them, take snapshots, grab them from your drive, search for them, lots of things. Okay? So that's the gist. That's what drawings is. Again, please dive into that help guide if you want to learn all the different things you can do in it. It's a great, great tool, a lot of fun. So what are we doing with it today? Well, here's the deal. As I've been playing with drawings over the last few years, been doing some fun things with it, playing around, had the opportunity to think about how this could apply to a particular subject, in this case, math. Now, I used to be a math teacher, started off as a middle school math teacher many, many, many years ago, and loved that, absolutely enjoyed that before moving into technology integration. And recently, I was doing some training for a school on how to use technology in math. And what I did as I went through all of the Math Common Core standards is I kept seeing a lot of times where drawings would show up over and over and over again as a really cool tool. I said, hey, you know what? I could use drawings for that standard. Oh, I could use drawings for that standard. And so I kept compiling these together, and I said, yep, I think we're onto something here. It looks like Google Drawings is a really great tool to cover the Common Core standards for a lot of mathematics. And so what I did was I basically went from grade K through 8. Now, if you're a high school person, I do apologize. I didn't particularly look at high school, but a lot of the stuff is going to apply anyway, and I hope you can learn from this and transform it a little bit so it fits your stuff better. But what I did was I went through all of the Common Core standards for math grades K through 8, and as I did, I tried to find all the different places where I thought drawings might cross over and be a good tool. And so what I created was the document that you see linked below the help guide on the webinar page. It's the second document down called Teaching Math with Google Drawings. That's where we're going to camp out for the whole rest of this session now. So Teaching Math with Google Drawings is the result of that. And if you open that up, what you're going to see is a document where what I've done is I've tried to list out a whole bunch of different activities and how those different activities can address different Common Core standards. So when you do take a look at this document, what you're going to see here is a topic like lines of symmetry. You'll see the Common Core standard it addresses, and then you'll see an example Google drawing that ties into that. Some of them cover maybe one standard. Others cover lots of standards and may have a whole bunch of them listed there. But in each case, I've got a topic, I've got the standards that it addresses, and then I've got an example project. And so all we're going to do the whole rest of this time is I'm going to start at the top and go to the bottom of this document. And we're going to see if in 45 minutes we can get through every one of these examples. I will try my best. If not, you've got everything linked in here and you guys can have access to that at any point. So again, don't forget, this is all, like we said, at tiny.cc/spark 223. That'll take you to the webinar page. And if you go right below where the video is, the second link down, Teaching Math with Google Drawings, that's the link you want. Whoops, I just opened it up again myself twice. Only needed open once. We'll close out of that. That is the document we're going to go through. All right, so here we go. Buckle up, folks. We're gonna hit the ground running. So, and these are not in any particular order. I'd say if anything, the first few here are probably simpler. And the further down the page we go, the more involved they get. Maybe, but that's not always true either. So don't look for a particular pattern here in these examples. All right, first thing first, one of the things that we need to cover in mathematics is lines of symmetry. And students need to be able to identify them, find if shapes have them or don't have them. So what I've done is I've thrown in a very simple Google drawing here. So let's open this up. And this Google drawing shows a bunch of different shapes, and the students are asked to find how many lines of symmetry they can insert for each object below. Now, this is view only. Everything I've made here is view only, but you guys can make your own copy. That's the whole idea of all of this. So anything in here, once you open up the original drawing, all you have to do is click File, and then choose Make a Copy, and you can make your own copy of that drawing and play around with it all you want, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of the lines of symmetry diagram. And in a case like this could be something where you as the teacher create the Google drawing, and maybe you push it out to your kids through Google Classroom, which, by the way, if you haven't used Classroom yet, please dive into that. I actually did a webinar on that about a month ago. So if you check our past webinars, there's a webinar all on how to use Classroom to push things like this out to your kids. So maybe you're creating this and pushing a copy to every kid and they're completing it. Or maybe this is a whole class activity. Maybe you're just putting this up on the projector and you're all doing it together as a whole class. Maybe it's for instruction. That would be fine too. So how would a student actually complete this? Well, chances are they'd probably just use the line tool. So like we said, you can go to Insert Line, and from there you can insert a line, an arrow, a curve. Well, let's say I just want to insert a line. So I could say I want to insert a line. And at that point, I can simply click and drag a line across any of my shapes to draw in a line of symmetry. Now, folks, quick thing here. If you don't think you can click and drag really straight, you're afraid you're going to get a little bit off. It's going to go a little high, a little low. Like I'm going to do this intentionally. See how that's kind of diagonal? That's not a really good line there. It's kind of off a bit. Remember that I said the shift key is your friend. When you go to draw something in, if you hold the shift key down, it constrains it. So for a line, it keeps it at either 90 degrees or 0 degrees or 30, 60, 45. It keeps it at really nice even degrees. So if I hold down my shift key and I drag a line across this, I could have a nice straight line of symmetry there. And by the way, it doesn't have to be just a solid line like that. Don't forget, I could come up here and make it a dashed line. I could make it thicker. I could make it a different color, like so. Then I could do another one maybe from the top down. There's a line of symmetry, maybe from corner to corner. There's a line of symmetry. Whoops, I'm going to have to move that one over a little bit. I didn't do a real good job. And there's another line of symmetry. If they don't come up just right, remember you can always move things in there. So notice I'm currently in drawing mode for my line. I could simply come back up here right next to my little button for my line. There's a button to select. So I could click off of my line on my select button. And now I can click on any of my lines and adjust them a little bit if I need to move them around. Maybe I didn't just get that one quite right. There we go. That's a little bit better. So again, I could just keep repeating that process. I could go back to my line and I could draw lines of symmetry through all of these. Now, not everything has a line of symmetry. This trapezoid here, there really isn't a line of symmetry. And a circle, there's actually infinite lines of symmetry. So those ones are a little bit of a trick there, but the heart could have a line of symmetry going right down through the middle of it. And again, feel free to change this to dotted or dashed or however you would like that to be. So that could be one particular activity where students are simply taking the drawing tool and drawing in lines of symmetry. Now, folks, it could also be that the students are adding the shapes. It doesn't have to be you. You could say, okay, student, you need to go to insert shape and you need to find shapes and you need to add shapes that have 1, 2, 3 lines of symmetry, 4, and then have them draw them in. So you have to judge based upon the level of your students. Are you providing them with the entire activity? Are you giving them more of a blank drawing with some instructions and they're the ones that are dropping the shapes in and then they're cutting them up? It could be. So think about that. All right, let's keep going. Next one down is partitioning shapes. So many of the Common Core standards say that students need to be able to divide up shapes into equal shares, whether they be rectangles or circles or whatever it might be, cutting them into halves and fourths and so forth. So for that one, very similar to the first. This is not much of a departure at all from the first one, just kind of a little twist on it. If I open up that template, you will see it's simply how many ways can you split a rectangle into 4 equal pieces? So again, it's view only. You would have to make your own copy. You'd have to click File and then make a copy. And after you make a copy of that, the student would again use the drawing tool to insert a line. And from there, they could say, I think I could probably cut this up with a line across the middle and a line from top to bottom. That would be 4 equal pieces. But then maybe they do another one from top to bottom, and then they split that again, and then they split that again from top to bottom. Or, maybe they do diagonally. So they go from one corner to the other. You get the idea. So the point is, again, you could be doing this. You could be the one who's creating this drawing and pushing it out to the kids, or this could be a whole class activity, or they could be instructed to find a shape that they can cut into equal pieces. They insert the shape themselves from the insert menu, and then they use lines to divide it up. And again, all of these things could be pushed out through Google Classroom, so every student gets their own copy of the drawing that they can then work on. So again, if you're not using Classroom, it's the lifesaver. It's what's going to let you take all of these templates you create and push them out to the kids. All right, let's keep going. Next one down. What do we have next here? Shapes. All right. Well, this one applies to a lot of grade levels, and this is a pretty fun one. Students have to be able to identify different types of shapes. Now, young students, it's just some basic shapes, squares and rectangles and stuff. The older they get, more specific, certain types of triangles, isosceles versus equilateral versus scalene, whatever the case might be. Well, here's a really fun project you can do with your kids that combines their creativity with geometry. And the idea is students would create a picture using Google Drawings where you give them a list of required shapes. And you say, whatever you create, it's got to have these in it. So it's got to have a square and a rectangle and a rhombus and a trapezoid or whatever. Or it has to have different types of triangles, or it has to have a pentagon, a hexagon, a quadrilateral, whatever. You tell them what has to be in the drawing, and then they create their own artistic drawing of whatever they want that has all those items in there. Now, do not laugh at my example here. Be kind to me. But here's the one I did. This is my RoboDog 3000. So there we go. And so I've inserted a rectangle, 2 trapezoids for feet. We've got squares here that are holding up his rocket booster, which is a parallelogram. We've got a rhombus for the fire, another trapezoid for his head. We've got some squares for his eyes, and his tail is just a quadrilateral that actually doesn't fit anything but a quadrilateral. And so the point is they could create something really creative like this, and then part of their assignment might be they then have to write up a Google Doc that explains what each of the shapes are in the drawing, where those show up. Now, just to show you how I'm doing all of this, again, I'm not going to recreate an entire RoboDog example here, but let me go ahead and create a new drawing really quick just to show you what I did. So if I go File, New Drawing, and for this one, let's say, I just have to use some different shapes. We'll keep it pretty simple, some quadrilaterals, some triangles. Let's say I want to do a fish, so I could simply come in here, insert a shape. Maybe I'll go with we'll go with a diamond shape, a rhombus shape. We'll drag that out. That'll be the body of my fish there. We'll make him a goldfish, so we'll make him yellow. And then maybe I'm going to insert, we'll do a triangle for his tail. So let me find my triangle in here. Excellent. We'll go ahead and give him a triangle tail. I'll grab the rotate button there to rotate that around a little bit. Hook his tail onto him there. Excellent. Maybe his tail will be a slightly different color. That's okay. And then we'll give him some sort of a big fin on top there. So we'll go ahead and I'll insert, let's go with a parallelogram for the top there. Drag that out. Excellent. You get the idea. And of course, maybe a circle for his eye. So we'll go ahead and grab a circle here. And I'll hold down the Shift key to keep it nice and regular. And we'll fill that in black. You get the idea. So I could just keep doing that. I could keep building whatever shape I want. So maybe it's a snowman, maybe it's a robot, maybe it's a building. I don't know, whatever they want to be creative with. What a great opportunity for the kids to identify the shapes that they need to use. But everybody's going to be different. Every student is going to be unique and different. Now, what about the background, the RoboDog background where I had the space background there? If you want to add an image to the background of this, there's a lot of ways you can do that. If you go to your Insert Image option up there, you can upload images, you can take a snapshot, you can search for pictures there, do a Google search. But honestly, what I find is one of the easiest ways to do this is to use the research tool. So if you've not used the research tool inside of drawings, it does fit in really nice. Usually when we think of the research tool, we think of Google Docs and looking up websites and quotes and things like that. But inside of Google Drawings, if I go to Tools and then Research, it pops open a little search bar here on the side where I can run a search for things including images. So what if I want to find an underwater background? So I'll say I want to find an underwater background. And then in the little drop down here, I'll say just search for images. It's now going to show me bunches of images it found online that fit that topic, underwater background. I can then simply drag and drop any of those right onto my drawing. So anything from the research tool, you can just drag and drop it right over. Once it gets dropped over here, it does come with a link back to the original. If you want, you can hit the remove button to take that link off. And then you could resize that. So I'll come in here and I'll drag this out to make it bigger. Doesn't quite fit, so I'll go ahead and I could either crop it, but I'll just stretch it a little bit taller. And remember about ordering, since I added this late, it is by order on top of everything. I can just right click, go to order and say send to back, and there we go. I've got a nice, wonderful background behind my polygon fish. All right. So I think that would be a great project for kids to do if you want them to be learning about shapes. All right, let's keep on heading down the list here. What's up next? Fractions are next. Now, this one I do not take credit for. The teacher down at Brown Local Schools actually did this project and shared it, and I'm so happy to be able to reshare this out with others. Here's the idea. Students are supposed to understand fractions and be able to represent them, to be able to do visual models of a half, a third, a fourth, an eighth. Well, the project that this one is called fraction flags. And the way it works is you can start off by having students just studying flags in general. So, get, a bunch of pictures of flags from the internet of different countries, and students can look at them and realize, hey, this flag is 1/3 red, 1/3 white, and 1/3 green. They can use fractions to describe the different colors on the flag. And after they get used to that and they understand how that works, they can then use Google Drawings to create their own fraction flag. And again, I did the same thing. So here's just a sample one, very simple, but I went ahead and created a fraction flag that is 1/4 blue, 1/2 or 2/4, 1/2 or 2/4 blue, 1/4 red, 1/8 yellow, and 1/8 white. And that would be the point. The students would create their own flag, and then they would write up for each color what fraction is being shown. Now, again, I'll show you real quick how I did this. If I go to create a new Google drawing, basically what you would have the kids do is from their blank Google drawing is they would want to insert their shape, like for example, maybe a rectangle. Now, here's the thing. If you say, well, Eric, how are they going to get it just perfect? If they go to drag that out, how will they know that it's really a fourth and not off a little bit? Here's my suggestion for you. If you guys do fraction flags, have them click and drag out, have them cover the entire flag first. Get that shape on the whole entire flag first. After that, then have them grab one of the handles, either the side or the bottom or the top, and watch this. If I say I want to cut this in half, I can simply grab the handle and drag it over, and notice I can bring it right to the handles for the top and bottom where the middle is. And when I let go, perfectly in half. So not only am I getting it in half, I'm reinforcing the concept of cutting a hole in half while I'm doing it. And maybe I just want a fourth, no problem. Now grab the bottom handle, drag it up to those little marks that show the middle spot on the sides, and perfect. Now I've got it exactly as a fourth. And if I wanted to, I could copy paste. So I could copy this, and then I could paste this, and now I've got a second one, and maybe I put that one down in the corner. You get the idea. And then you can change the colors of each of these, color them in different ways, whatever works for you. So, and of course, they can do the same with triangles and all of that. So another way, every student is going to be unique. And that's one of the great things. We want our students to have creativity. We talk about the 4 C's all the time: communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. We want them to be creative. We don't want every single product to look the same. We want them to go their own way because they're going to surprise you. They're going to come up with either really neat geometry artwork or really neat fraction flags that you never even thought of. So as much as possible, yeah, let's guide them, but then let's give them that blank canvas that they can go out and, following your guidelines, they can create really neat things. All right, keep heading down the list. Got to keep moving. What's up next? Pictographs and line plots. Another thing kids need to do a lot of in elementary and middle school is create graphs. And one that comes up a lot of time is pictographs and line plots. Now, if this was a bar graph, a line graph, a circle chart, I wouldn't be saying drawings. I would be saying Anthony's favorite. I'd be saying spreadsheets. I'd be saying use Google Sheets, use charts and graphs in there. Absolutely. But you know what? Pictographs and line plots, actually, they work really well in Google Drawings. It's actually a really good tool for this. Here's an example of a finished product. Let me open one up just to show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how I created it. All right, so here you see a Google drawing where we're asking people how many pets they have. And so each dog represents 2 people's responses. And I can see that, 2 people have no pets, but 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So that's 9 people have 2 pets, and on down the line. Well, this is a pictograph, and honestly, it was very, very easy to create inside of drawings. So let me show you what you would do if you wanted to have your kids create a pictograph with Google Drawings. So first of all, let's go ahead and create a new drawing. So we'll go File, New Drawing. And again, you can color it in any color you want for the background. So we'll make this one a light blue or something. That's fine. Excellent. Now, you're going to need basically a few tools to make this happen. One is a table. The second is some kind of clip art, some kind of image. The third is some text boxes. And finally, maybe the cropping tool. You might need that too. So first thing first, we need the table in which all of the items are going to be ordered for the pictograph. So how do you insert a table into a Google drawing? Actually, it's pretty easy. You simply go up to the insert menu and you go down to table. And from there, you can actually drag your mouse out to make the table as big or as small as you want. So maybe I want to have a table that is, 5 columns across and, maybe 5 columns tall. Well, we'll do 6 columns tall. That's fine. Click that. And boom, it drops that table right into your drawing. You can now grab the top to make it taller, grab the bottom to make it taller, grab the sides to make it wider, get it whatever size you want that to be. Now, once you've got the table in there, so far so good. Okay, so we've got our table, we've got our grid. Next, we need to come down to the bottom and we need to fill in the numbers that indicate what these stand for. So maybe 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, for example. Now, notice those are really small numbers, so I could highlight those, and I could just change the font size, bump it up to something larger, maybe go in and center it. Very easy to do that. Okay, what else do I need? Well, maybe I need a title at the top before we start filling this in. What is this a pictograph of? And we'll just do the same one. We'll say number of pets. So I could come here to insert a text box, go ahead and drag out a text box here at the top, and we'll just put in number of pets, and we'll make that larger so it's easy to see. And again, folks, you can change anything. You can change the font. If you don't like that font, use one of the 700 Google Web fonts that are out there. Pick a font that you think looks cool, and that is perfectly fine. All right. Now, at this point, if it was a line plot, all I would do now is come in here and type X's into these boxes to indicate what the amounts were for each of these. If it's a pictograph, I need to put pictures in. So I'll do the line plot first, then we'll change it into a pictograph. If I'm going to come here and type X's into these boxes to show how many people answered each of these numbers, I probably also want to make sure it's a big X and that it's centered. So I'll go ahead and highlight all of these cells. I'm going to bump up this to a 36-point font, and I'll tell it to be centered so it's easier to see. Now I could simply come in here and type in my X's right into there, and very quickly I could have a nice line plot. So if that's all I'm going for is a number line with X's above it, yep, that's a line plot. On the other hand, let me get rid of those. Let's say, whoa, didn't mean to do that, Eric. I just wanted to get rid of the X's. Thankfully, there's the undo button. Did not mean to actually delete the rows there. So we'll use that. We could use the revision history too if I really boogered it up, but we'll just do that. Okay. Now, what if I want to add images in here? Well, let's say it's a pictograph and I want to put a picture of a dog in there. Well, folks, just like we did when we're doing the background for the fish picture we did, I could use the research tool to be able to find a really quick, cute clip art of a dog. So if I go up to tools and I go down to research, I could now type in something like dog clip art. And if I type that in, it's going to run a search. And again, I could tell it just to look for images. And I could find a picture of dog clip art that I like. Doesn't really matter which one. Any of these will probably be fine. I won't use one from Disney. They'll come and get me. So I'll go with something. We'll go with the same one we used on the other one. That's fine. We'll just reuse him. He's cute. I could drag this dog on over, drop him in onto my drawing. And once I've got him there, I can close out of the research tool. I probably want to remove his link and shrink him up a little bit. He's a little too tall there, so let's shrink him up a little bit there so he actually fits. There we go. So now I have a dog that fits inside of one of my boxes. I can just go copy paste, or I can do edit copy paste, or I can use Control C and Control V to quickly copy paste, which is what I think I'll do. Control C and V. So we'll paste him, and we'll paste him, and we'll paste him. And I can very quickly start going through here, pasting in my dog to create my pictograph in this particular example. Now, what if the dogs don't represent one person? Because a pictograph sometimes can represent multiple people. So instead of every dog being one vote, like 3 people have 2 pets and 1 person has 1 pet, what if each dog does represent only, 2 people or 4 people or whatever? Well, what I could do is I could come up here, paste my dog one more time, throw him up here, and I could add a little text box right next to him to say what that dog is worth. So we'll say that is equal to 4 people, or whatever the case might be. You would just have to decide how much one dog is going to represent. In that case, maybe then I don't need a full dog for every one of these. Maybe if it's 4 people, this was 4, 8, 12, maybe it's 14. So maybe 14 people answered, and I need half a dog in this spot here to show that. Well, the way that works is basically just copy and paste your dog as usual, and then use the cropping tool. Now, the way the cropping tool works is you simply go up to the toolbar and you find it kind of it's a little more than halfway across. Looks like a little, well, I don't know what it looks like exactly, a little square there with some edges on it. That's the crop image tool. Now, folks, if for some reason you don't see that, if your screen is too small, it may be under the More button. If your screen gets too small, More will show up on the toolbar and you can click that, and that will give you the other things you can't see. But if I do come up here and click on the crop image button, now I get these little black lines around my image, and I can just crop that dog down halfway, click the crop button again to unselect it, and boom, there he is. I got half a dog. And so it's very easy to crop any image you throw in there, and I could even copy and paste that if I had another one that just needed the half, or I could make it a fourth, or I could make it 3/4 as well. So Google Drawings is actually a really nice way to quickly do line plots and pictographs. All right, keep on moving. We're making good progress here, folks. Okay, what's up next? Next, we have congruent shapes, similar shapes. So these are kind of similar to each other, congruency and similarity. And so here would be an option to take advantage of Google Drawings' built-in ability to do moving, flipping, rotating, resizing by taking a look at what shapes are congruent and what shapes are similar. So again, I've created an example for you to use if you'd like to play around with this. So in this one, again, it's view only. You'll have to make your own copy of it. But if you open up congruent shapes, you could then go File, make a copy. And once you make a copy of that, the point is you're supposed to take a look at this first blue shape here and see, is it congruent to the other shapes that are on this drawing? And so the student could copy and paste the original, and then they could try to modify it to see if it is the same as any of these others by doing a move, a flip, or a rotation. Okay, and that's kind of the definition of congruency. That's the same size angles and the same size sides, even if it goes through a move, a flip, or a rotation. So in a Google drawing, I can do that in a number of ways. So like in this first one here, it looks like this is probably just a 90-degree rotation. I could either grab my little rotate button at the top, or I could click Arrange and then choose Rotate, and then rotate clockwise or counterclockwise 90. I'll go clockwise 90, and I'll drag it over and see, does it fit? And yep, it's a perfect fit. So those are congruent. I could try the same thing again, copy, paste. This one, it looks like it's congruent, but it looks like it's a mirror image. So for the red one, I might go Arrange, Rotate, and then Flip. I could flip it horizontally, drag that horizontally flipped one over, and what do you know? Yep, perfect match. And I could keep doing that all the way down the line. Now, if I get to one that doesn't match, which I think this third one I made not match, if I come down here, it looks like it's been turned 90 degrees counterclockwise. So if I go Arrange, Rotate, when I drag it on top of this, it looks like it's going to fit, but oh, nope. The cutout, the notched portion is greater in the green one than it is in the blue one. So those are not congruent. So the point is, again, you could provide students with these, and they could try to find out which ones match by putting them through these transformations. And then they could write up, here are the steps I took to turn the blue one into the red one, or whatever the case might be. Or, hey, they could do it themselves. Again, you don't even have to provide this for them. You could say, you pick a shape, and then you run it through 3 different transformations and show the end result, share that with another student and see if you can figure out what each other did. So again, you decide how much you want to give them the reins and how much you want to guide them through it. Now, the next one, though, very much the same thing, similarity. I will only spend a brief moment on it. This is for similar shapes. The only difference with this one is similar shapes can be different sizes, because if you're similar, that just means your angles are the same and your sides are in proportion. So if I come in and make a copy of this one, you will see that I could do the same idea, copy and paste this blue guy here and try to make him fit these others. Now we know he'll fit the yellow if I just do a 180, I can tell that. But what about this red one up here? The red one is obviously smaller than the blue one. It's in the right orientation, but it's clearly smaller. Well, remember, guys, we said you can resize shapes as well. We've talked about how you can grab the corners or grab the edges and you can drag and resize them. Well, the thing to be careful of, though, and we've mentioned this before, is if you want to resize it proportionally, hold down the shift key when you're doing that resizing. That way it doesn't get out of proportion. That is truly the same as being a similar shape because you're keeping it in proportion. So if I take this blue one and bring it over here, and if I hold down my shift key and I drag this corner, eventually I should get an indication. It's telling me they're the same size now. Drag the blue one on top of it and perfect match. So that's a great way to emphasize the idea of similarity by holding down that shift key if you need to change the size. And of course, you could still rotate it, flip it, you could move it. So that's transforming, rotating, reflecting, all of those things can be done. All right, keep on going. We're in a marathon, but we're making it. All right, what's up next? The next 2 are actually more along the line of what I would call graphic organizers. One of them is classifying objects, and the other is properties of quadrilaterals. In both of these cases, I have created some pre-made graphic organizers that students could use. So you could either use these, create your own, the kids could create them, but the idea is there's some sort of a graphic organizer created for them, and they're putting things into categories or arranging things. So for very young students, one thing they have to do is classify objects and put them into categories up to 3 different characteristics or 3 different categories. So I've got one for shapes, colors, and sizes. I'm just going to do the one for shapes real quick here. So if I open this up, you'll again see that it is view only. So you're going to have to make a copy of it. So if we go File and we go Make a Copy, I'll get my own blank copy of this. And once that opens up, you can see what I've done is I made 3 jars here. And on the lid of the jars, I've got the title of what that category is. In this case, triangles, squares, and circles. And then below here, I've got a bunch of triangles, squares, and circles. Different shapes, different colors, and different sizes. So in this case, I just have to drag my triangles to the first one. And then, of course, my squares to the next one and my circles to the final one. And of course, I would go through and do this for the entire, I don't have to do all of them right now, but you get the idea. You would sort all of those into there. And so you can do this, though, and you can change the title. Simply double click where it says triangles, put in a different thing. And that's what I've done on the other examples. I've got one that says red, yellow, blue. I've got one that says small, medium, large. So you could either use these, or you could, again, create your own, or the students could create their own, or this could be a full whole class activity. But Google Drawings lends itself really well to graphic organizers if you want to do sorting and categorizing. Same idea for a little bit of an older grade level would be properties of quadrilaterals. So I put together another template here for putting quadrilaterals into a graphic organizer. Again, students have to understand what are the different types of quadrilaterals, what makes them different, what makes them unique. So if I come in here and I open up this one, let's go ahead and make a copy of it. Again, it's view only. So we'll go File, Make a Copy. And once we get into this copy here, what you'll see is it's a graphic organizer where you've got quadrilateral as the biggest category. Then you've got trapezoids inside of them because trapezoids are quadrilaterals, but they're unique. Then you've got parallelograms inside of quadrilaterals, but not crossing over with the trapezoids. And then types of parallelograms include rectangles and rhombuses or rhombi. And where a rectangle and a rhombus intersects, that's a square because a square is a rectangle and a rhombus. So basically, the kids have this graphic organizer, and their job is to put shapes into all the categories. So they would come in here, they go to insert, they'd come down to shape, and they'd go over to shapes. They'd have to find shapes that match these categories. And you know what, folks? It may be different for each kid. They may find, really creative ones that fit those. But if I wanted to do a trapezoid, I could come here, grab this trapezoid perhaps, drag him out, maybe change the color. If it's hard to see, you can always go in and, of course, change the color of your shapes. Go back in and insert another shape. Maybe I want to come over here and I want to do a rhombus. So I'll grab my diamond shape here and I'll drag out a rhombus over here. And for the square, again, I'd have to hold down my shift key when I insert the square because that's going to be a rectangle, but I'm holding down the shift key so that it stays nice and square. And again, you could find a lot of different varieties. So maybe some trapezoids look like this, but then if they come in here to insert another trapezoid, maybe they grab a different looking one here like this guy right there. That's a trapezoid, but a little different look to it. And so again, they could be very creative as they build their own. Now for the quadrilateral itself, they're probably not going to be able to use any of the pre-made shapes because all of these are pretty much going to fit a category. If they need to make a shape that does not match any of those, like just a general quadrilateral where nothing is congruent to anything else, they're probably going to have to go to the line tool and choose the polyline option. That lets you build your own polygon. So if I go to the line tool and polyline, I can drag out 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. There we go. And then click on the little select button at the top to unselect that tool. And there I've made a quadrilateral that doesn't fit anything else. All right. Good deal. Let's keep moving. Oh, by the way, if you guys want other graphic organizers besides those, I did put a link in there. The very first webinar I ever did actually for Spark last December, almost a year ago, was on using Google Drawings for graphic organizers. And I do have a link in here to a collection of about 25 or 30 pre-made templates with graphic organizers. That webinar is available. So definitely feel free to take advantage of any of those graphic organizers. They're all Google Drawing templates that you can use. All right, we are trying to get through. We've got 9 minutes left, 8 minutes left. Okay, here we go. What's up next? How about area? Now, folks, these next couple I'm going to show you, they're, like I said, the further you go into this document, the more, I don't want to say complicated they get, but the more requirements they have. Maybe that's a good way of saying it. So what about area? Well, one of the things kids need to do is they need to be able to count squares to figure out how much area an object covers. Sometimes very regular objects, sometimes irregular objects, sometimes things where they have to cut it in half to figure out what the area is. So can you do this with Google Drawings? Well, folks, I wish I could tell you that you could go into Google Drawings, like with my sample drawing here, and that there would just be a button up there. You click View Grid. But there isn't. I'm sorry. There is not a View Grid button. I just wish there was a grid. You could just click View Grid and there it is, and it's just floating on top of it, and then you can count things. There isn't one, so I made one. So what I've got is I've got 2 templates for you. You may make copies of these and use these with your kids, push them out to your kids, no problem at all. An 8x8 and a 16x16 template. So if you click on the I'm going to do the 16x16. If I click on the 16x16, what you'll notice is it's a Google drawing that has a grid on it. Now I'm going to make a copy of it because again, this is view only. I can't change this. So I'll go File, make a copy. And once I make a copy of this grid template, what you're going to see is what I've got here is actually just a picture on top of this drawing. And if I click on the grid, you can drag it off and then you can drag it back on. It's just a floating grid that I added to the template. Now, if it gets moved, no problem. Just kind of put it back in the corners and click, it'll go right back into place. So what I've done is I've made a 16x16 and an 8x8 grid so that you could now have kids determine area of objects. Now, again, maybe this is you putting it on the projector in front of the kids and you're just doing a full class activity. Or maybe you're creating the template and you're pushing it out to the kids and they're inserting their own shapes and they're figuring out what the area is. Well, let me show you how it works. The idea is you would simply go up to Insert, go down to Shape, and grab a shape you want to find the area of. So maybe I come here and I want to make a rectangle. No problem. Click on the rectangle and I drag that rectangle out. And once I've got that drug out and I let go, there's my shape. Now you can say, oh, Eric, something went wrong. The shape is on top of the grid. How can you count the area of the squares if the grid's behind it? Well, you're right, because I added the shape later, it's on top. We do need to remember, right click, go to order, send to back. And boink, now it's behind everything. So you do need to get used to that whole idea of ordering things. Now, once it's there, the kids could simply count up how many squares make up the area of that. Or don't forget, they've got the scribble tool. You could have them write right on this. So I could go to Insert Line, and I could choose the scribble tool. And maybe I'm going to use the scribble tool to check off the squares as I count them. And again, if you can't see that well, you can make the line thicker, you could make it a different color, but the kids could check, 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 check. They could draw right on top of this as they check off the different squares. They could even annotate it. We could put a little brace up here and say, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 5 by, let's see, how big is it here? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5 by 8. So the whole thing is going to be 40. And so using the scribble tool, they can write right on top of their drawing as well. Okay, now that would be great for squares and triangles and all kinds of stuff. You could throw any shape in there you want. Or let me make another copy of this and I'll show you, what about an irregular shape? Sure, absolutely. Sometimes we are going to try to estimate the area of something. In that case, I would go to my research tool, Tools, Research, and I'd find a picture. So maybe again, I find a picture of that dog or whatever you want. The dog clip art is fine, but I will come here and I'll grab this same piece of clip art, drop my dog onto my drawing. But again, it could be any image you want. It doesn't have to be clip art. You could also insert an image from the Insert Image option. That'd be fine. But once you got him in there, let's make him bigger. Let's drag that dog out. And then let's right click on him, go to Order, send him to the back. And now I could find the area of an irregular shape where the kid has to go through and count all of the full squares and all of the partial squares to get an estimated area. All right, keep on going. Whew, how are we doing? We're almost to the bottom, aren't we? Algebra tiles. Okay, I'm just going to show this one because I only have 2 left and I don't hardly have time. So I'm just going to show this one really quick. Algebra tiles. I made a Google Drawing version of algebra tiles. If you know what they are, then you don't need any explanation. If you don't, probably then you don't teach algebra, and that's okay. Basically, algebra tiles allow you to be able to mimic, do a virtual version, like I shouldn't say that, a physical version of algebra problems. So like if I wanted to do something, I can just copy paste these. So copy paste. If I wanted to do like X and it was like X plus 2, I could do something like X and then 2 ones next to it for X plus 2. And then if I'm multiplying that by 2X plus 1, I could put 1X here, and then I could put another X here, and then grab my 1 up here. Didn't need another X there, needed another 1. Sorry about that. And the point is, you can create a grid here, and then where they cross each other, that's where you copy and paste. I won't complete this, but that's where you copy and paste in where they cross each other. So X times X is X squared, and then X, and then 1s and stuff like that. And it allows you to do something like X plus 2 times 2X plus 1 and actually work out the algebraic answer to it as you multiply those binomials. The nice thing about this is it's all virtual, so students can, you can do this on the board, the kids can do it themselves. Nobody's going to lose algebra tiles, nobody's going to throw them around, and they're free. So feel free to use the algebra tiles. All right, last one, final one here. If we go over by just a few minutes, that's okay. We won't charge you any extra. It's all free anyway. So, so I may run over just a moment here, but I do want to show you this last one because it's fun. All right, my last example here, and this isn't certainly the last thing you can do. I hope, guys, this creates a lot of ideas for you and you run with these things. And please share with me if you come up with some other neat ways to use drawings in math. So for the very, very last example I'm going to do is one for lines and angles. Students need to be able to identify different types of angles, right, acute, obtuse, perpendicular lines, parallel lines, but they also need to know what happens when parallel lines are cut by a transversal, like alternate interior angles, corresponding angles, supplementary angles, things like that. Well, here's a fun activity you can do. And again, it's the last one because it's the most complicated of them. But this one uses Google Maps, because one of the fun things to do when you're teaching things like angles and parallel lines is try to tie it into the kids' lives. And so by looking at Google Maps, students can zoom in on a neighborhood, maybe where they live, and they can find loads of angles and parallel lines and transversals. And so it's fun because, well, I mean, they can relate to it. Hey, I live there, or that's where we go to school, or whatever the case might be. So let me show you how this one works. The basic idea is you're going to need to take a screenshot of a neighborhood. So again, you don't have to do this. I will do it really quick here just as an example. I'll go to Google Maps. And from Google Maps, we live in the Canton, North Canton area around here. So it's probably going to pull up around the Canton area. Let me jump up to North Canton, which is where I live. So we'll just head up a little bit here, and I'm going to zoom in on a neighborhood that has some nice transversals and parallel lines. There we go. We're going to grab this right here where Main crosses 9th and 10th. So what I could do is I could come in here and I could do a screenshot of this, and then I could take that screenshot and throw it into drawings. And then inside of drawings, I could mark it up. I could start measuring angles and drawing angles, and I could start identifying alternate interior angles and corresponding angles and supplementary angles. So the question is, how do you do a screenshot? Well, folks, if you're on a Chromebook, it's really easy. Control plus Shift plus the switch window keys, those three together, will take a screenshot automatically. So isn't that nice? On a Chromebook, you don't need anything special. If you're not on a Chromebook, though, you need some kind of screen capture tool. I'm going to recommend the Snagit extension. I also use Awesome Screenshot as well, but I'm going to recommend Snagit for this example today. And here's a link to install it if you want. Now, I've already got Snagit installed. What Snagit does, it's by TechSmith. It gives me an extension up here in the top right-hand corner of Chrome that if I click on Snagit, it lets me decide what I want to capture. Well, I want to capture a region, and then I can drag out a region. And once I'm done, I click the little capture button there, and it takes a picture of it, and it says, do I have permission to save this to Drive? I say, yes, you're allowed to. And it is syncing that to my Google Drive. So now I have that picture on my Google Drive. I could then insert that image into a Google drawing, and I would be able to start measuring it. Now, here's the thing. If you want to have kids measure angles, you've got a couple of ways to do it. One is you can use a protractor template drawing that I've already put together here. So if you want to, you can start with this one. And this is a template where I stuck a protractor in the template. How about that? So if you use this one and you make a copy of it, what you're going to get is a Google drawing that has a little protractor off to the side here that you can click on and drag into the document and move it around and shrink it and make it bigger and smaller and whatever, and you can measure things with it. So if you don't have a protractor of your own handy that the kids could put on the screen, which is fine, they could just put a protractor physically on the screen. That's fine. They could just put one up against the computer screen. That's okay. But you could use this template if you want. Again, you don't have to, but you could. And you could come now to insert an image, and I could insert right from my drive. If I go to my Google Drive, there's a TechSmith folder because, like I said, Snagit is made by TechSmith. So Snagit saves right to the TechSmith folder. And inside of there is my image from just a few minutes ago. Select that, drop that in, and boom, there it is in my drawing. I can now grab my protractor, make sure I bring my protractor to the top, make sure the order puts it on top, bring it to the front. Excellent. I can now take that protractor and I could resize it, move it around, and I could start measuring angles. Now, for an added bonus, there's an extension that allows you to do the same thing without using this template. And that's right below on the same document. If you go down just a couple lines below where we just looked at the Snagit extension, is one called MB Ruler for Chrome. It's a protractor. I have protector. Look at that. I spelled that wrong. I'll fix it. Sorry, guys. Protractor, not protector. Protractor extension. And there is the link to that. Now, I've already got this one installed as well. So let me go ahead and I'll turn it on. I just have it turned off at the moment. I'll turn it back on really quick. And it's called MB Ruler. So let me turn that on. If I go back over to my drawing here, I'll refresh my drawing so it picks up the new extension there. What it does is MB Ruler gives you a little drop-down box over here that includes a protractor. And if you click on the little protractor button there, it gives you a protractor that you can grab the red dot to move it around. And you can grab the red dots on the corners to make it smaller, bigger, and turn it different directions. And so either use the built-in template I have with a protractor there, or hey, if you want to install the extension, actually, I think that's a great idea. MB Ruler is what I recommend for a floating protractor. So the point is the students can now have a fun time looking at their neighborhood or where the school is or whatever, and you can tell them, find, an obtuse angle. And maybe that's all they have to do. So they'll say, yep, there's one where Main and 10th across. Go ahead and measure it. They can come in here, drop the vertex right on there. They can go ahead and get this all lined up and say, okay, that looks like it is, and I can drag this out if it helps. Drag this out here. Looks like it is about 106 degrees. And so I could do that, move this out of the way. And at that point, I could simply come in here and we'll move this guy back out of the way. I could come in here and I could put that right in on this drawing. So I could use my arrow, insert my arrow. I'll draw out one part of the angle here. Let's make it a little thicker. Let's make it red. Draw out another arrow here. And then I could use my text tool to click right here and type in the amount, which now I forget what it was. It was around 106 or so. I don't actually remember now, but I could do like 106. And if you want to put a degree symbol in there, you can always use the special character option. So if you go to Insert Special Characters, you can actually draw in what it is let me move this guy out of the way. Actually, I'll just close him out of the way. You can actually draw in the symbol. So you can draw a little degree symbol and it will find it for you. And there it is, the degree symbol. Boink, excellent. And so you can put that right in. So the point is the kids could annotate this. They could, again, find, parallel lines, perpendicular lines, transversals, alternate interiors. And so they could mark all of this up once they have it in there. Oh my gosh, we made it. Okay, we went over by a few minutes, but we made it. Good job. So as we start to wrap this up, hopefully that gives you a wide range of ideas of different ways that Google Drawings could be used to address different Common Core standards in mathematics, especially grades K through 8. Now, hopefully you can take this, build on it, find other ways that this can be used, but you can also apply it to different grade levels and different subject areas. So as we start to wrap this up, just as a reminder to everybody, everything from today and other resources can be found at tiny.cc/spark223. That takes you to the recorded webinar. That takes you to the help guide and the handout with all of the resources. The evaluation, which again, I really appreciate for people to fill that out. It gives us great feedback to improve these. And at the bottom is the link to take a quiz over this and get your own certificate of attendance for this session. Please don't forget while you're there to visit the PD schedule for upcoming trainings. Look at the recorded trainings option for all of the past ones we've done. Sign up for our newsletter and certainly feel free to contact us. All right, well, I think that gets us to the end. Fantastic. So just wanted to thank you guys once again for taking the time to watch this session. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you again in the coming weeks for many more educational technology webinars. Take care.